Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. Back again here on our sixth day. And today is our question and answer day. So this should be a fun day. I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come in. I haven't had too many, which I'm, either that means that I'm explaining things really well, so I don't have lots of questions, or maybe you're just a shy audience, so I'm not sure which one that is, but we'll just give a second here. I know it's right around 10 o'clock here. Okay, so I'm going to get started. As I had mentioned, I'm going to try to keep this to 30 minutes just because it is Saturday, and I know people have lots of things to do, places to go, people to see, and things like that. So want to answer your questions. And obviously, I can still, on Monday night, I can still address some of these questions as well. So if we don't get to everything today, it's fine. But I want to make sure that we don't go over the 30-minute time. Okay, so one of the questions that I did receive was, what does your program really involve, the 9-week program that I have? So I'm going to go through that just as a little Monday night. I am going to go through much more detail about my program and what it's meant to do, how it's meant to move the needle for you, really to help women get unstuck and move forward, to be able to have protocols in place that they can follow to really change not only their bodies, but their minds, how they're feeling about themselves, and move on in a much healthier manner for the second half of their lives. So I'm going to go into much more details on Monday, but just an overview. It is a 9-week program. There are 9 weekly modules that will be released every week. You'll have a new module, and it will follow along the 3 R's of the protocol. So it will follow along with relax, release, and replenish. And there's going to be a lot more science and information within the modules and in all the discussions that we'll have. But what's really unique about the program is that not only is there going to be group discussions, calls, you'll have a private Facebook group. So I will be actively in there every day answering questions that you have, concerns, challenges, because that's what it's all about. It's all about having someone to be able to rely on to help you through a transition from getting from one place to the place that you want to go. So you're going to have a lot of hand holding in the 9-week course, but besides what you would maybe expect in a group program, you also are going to get 3 private, these are Skype sessions, one-on-one with you on your specific unique situation. So we will dive into that individualized. It could be for some women that may be some emotional work. I mean, to be honest, it could be places where you're feeling as though things are stuck. You want to release those things. It might be that. It might be very heavy on the nutrition side of things. It may be just real issues that you have on a nutrition or a health basis, and we would be talking about that very individualized to you, and then really put you on that course. So what I do is I have the first session would be an hour and a half, because we're really going to get to know each other real well, go through a lot of details about your history, your story, and go through all of that the first time that we're Skyping together. The other 2 will be 45 minutes long, and they'll be approximately during the first and second week would be the first one, and then later on, probably about the 5th week or so, and then towards the end. as a way to move forward, where you've transformed up until towards the end of the 9 weeks. What's the best actions for you to take to move forward? So it is very individualized, as well as having the group setting, where you'll also be getting a weekly group call, which will talk about all other women may bring up issues or questions or concerns that maybe you hadn't thought about, and it can be helpful. So that's the 9 weekly modules. Every week there'll be some sort of I don't know, you could call it homework, exercises. I like to say more exercises, things that I will be having you do. And again, this is all to really make a transformation from where you are now to where you want to go, and how that's going to be. And even it's individualized, but there are certain things we all kind of want to take a look at to help move forward. So there'll be assignments, and I'll be looking at all of those and addressing them, some of them on the group calls, and then depending on the assignment and how much we're going to dive into it, we can get more specific in your individual calls or through questions you may ask through the Facebook group. And then let me see, there's going to be we're going to talk as far as the materials. There will be much more in-depth information on multiple subjects. Something I'm going to talk about briefly today, something like insulin resistance. There are other things like leptin resistance, some of the cutting edge type of nutritional science that's going on in today's world will all be included. I'm constantly upgrading and up leveling the information I'm putting in, because things do change. And so anything that I'm going to keep adding and adding to the program, and to, really discuss much more deeply what relaxing and sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems is all about, as well as releasing and get more into different toxins and things that we need to release. And then, of course, the replenishment part. So that's what the program is about. Like I said, it's 9 weeks. There are a couple of payment options. One would be to pay in full. The regular price is $13.99, or 2 payments of $7.25. I am going to have a very special offer for you on Monday. I know you will be super excited about this. So I'm not going to talk about that today, but I will announce that on Monday night. And even if people are watching the replays of this live, if you join the program, and the program is going to be starting in the very end of August. So it would be starting on the 26th of August is the next 9-week program that's going to be starting. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks, which is exciting. And so we'll be talking about all of those things more on Monday night. But that's the basis of what the program is. There's going to be special pricing for anybody who has either been participating in the live at this point, or if you've also just been, listening to a replay of the live. I'm still going to honor that. I know a lot of times on live programs, if there is a special offer, it's only for people on the live, but I'm going to extend that to people who may have listened to it. They just have to mention that, and then I'll make those arrangements for them. Okay, so that's my program. Now to get into a couple of questions that came in. So one of the questions is, what is an alkaline diet? And is this good? Pros, cons, things like that. So alkaline diets are wonderful. They're basically my protocol is an alkaline diet, okay? Because An alkaline diet is based on the idea that we want to keep our body in an optimum alkaline pH balanced state, which is considered from like a 7.35 to a 7.4 if you're measuring that. And there are people that, because their diets are so full of junk foods and sugars, that the alkalinity, they're going to go towards the acid side. Now, of course, extremely, it would be acidosis, considered that state, which is very serious because this can be a big problem. So what the diet really is just to eat fresh foods. We've been talking about organic foods that are very alkaline. And that can be just your leafy vegetables, your spinach, your bone broths, which have lots of minerals in them that can be very alkaline, your cilantros and parsleys and basils, your lots of herbs and spices, and all sorts of vegetables in there. So it's a wonderful diet. It's basically the components would be what I would be suggesting in our protocol. The only thing that, as in anything, people interpret things sometimes to the extreme. So, for instance, blueberries are actually not considered alkaline. So if you're an extremist and you're saying, well, I'm only going to eat foods that are alkaline, you may not have something like blueberries, which are fantastic for yourself. Apple cider vinegar, sauerkraut, things that we were talking about last night, which are phenomenal for your body, are not necessarily considered alkaline foods. So if you just print out a list of alkaline foods and say, well, I'm going to try to up my body's alkalinity as much as possible, and I'm not going to have anything else, that doesn't make sense to me. Our bodies are meant to be able, we metabolically, our bodies are like a chemistry lab. It needs a little bit of everything to really work well and to function optimally. So even though you may want to have your body in the optimal alkaline state, you don't have to only eat foods that are on a chart that says they're alkaline foods. If you're eating a clean vegetable, fruits, whole fruits, real vegetables, real food, high quality meats and fish, and if you're eating those type of things, then most likely you're not going to have an issue unless you're in an extreme case, which you're probably under a doctor's care, and then you're going to follow what that doctor's telling you to do. So hope that makes sense. And so yeah, great thoughts on that diet. So there's really not an issue with that, other than don't eliminate every type of food because you think it's not on an alkaline list. So hope that makes sense. So, all right. So that was one of the questions that came in. Another question came in was a little bit about what is intermittent fasting. So intermittent, as we talked about the other night, when you stop eating at night and you go and you don't eat again to the next morning, that is technically you fasted. I just consider it you stopped eating. So you're eating or you're not eating. Anytime you're not eating, you're fasting. Okay. So what intermittent fasting is, as far as a diet protocol, is that you are very specific on how long you want that not eating to be. So there are times where, and we had talked about this a little bit, there are times that I will myself give my body a time that is just resting, not eating, giving it a break. And that can there's different types of what that interval is going to be. Some people believe that every single day they want to have only a certain amount of time that they're going to eat. So they may say, I want to fast for 16 hours and then I will only eat in an 8-hour window. And they feel that that works well for them. It has reset. And if you're stuck, and as I mentioned the other night, fasting can be a great tool to use when appropriate. So sometimes it is appropriate to do that for a little bit and just create a breakthrough for yourself if that's necessary. It's not always necessary to do that. Most Americans actually eat more hours. I mean, they eat right up to bedtime. So if they're going to bed at 11 o'clock, they are eating right up to 11 o'clock. Then they go to bed, then they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they're eating. So they're eating from 6 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Every couple of hours, they're having something to eat. So when we're talking about intermittent fasting as a strategy to have some breakthroughs, to give your body a time that it can clean itself up, there's different ways to do it. Can you do it every single day and just have a certain eating window? You can. I believe you should take the first steps first, okay? Because that's kind of like jumping on the race car before you've learned how to drive, okay? So I believe that most people should look more at a 3 meal a day, should look at having that 12-hour window, just a normal window where you stop eating after dinner and you eat maybe a little bit after you wake up in the morning. It'll pretty much be close to 12 hours, and then have your 3 meals a day. So if you do that first and you find that your body's in a situation that and cleaning up, of course, quality food, quality. If you find that that isn't enough, then I would say, okay, let's try to move into some of the fasting protocols, see if that will help move the needle. Then after that, once you're healthy and things are where you want them, then use those fasting. A lot of people will do a fasting maybe a once a week or even just maybe once a month. They do a couple of days to give their body a little extra boost by removing it. Some people just do it in religious kind of holiday type of things. So there's different ways you can use that, but that's all that intermittent fasting is. So the standard ones would be having the 12 hours and then moving to 16 hours that you're not eating. Then some people like to do 18 hours and then they move into the 24 and then 36, 48 hour kind of fast scenarios. So it's just a time that you're not eating versus when you're eating. So anyways, hope that answers that question. If you do have any other questions or comments, you could definitely type them in now. I'll take a look at them, but hopefully that explains that. And then another question that had come in was, let me just see here. Okay. So I guess, all right, this would really be kind of be the last question, was a little bit about what is insulin resistance and do I have to be concerned about that or worry about that if I'm not diabetic? And so, yes, you should probably not be worried about it, but be aware of it, because most people who have been dieting, eating a standard American type diet, which is highly inflammatory, and have had excess weight for a lot of years, most likely there is some sort of insulin resistance going on there. And the issue is that when that goes on for a long enough period of time, that sort of becomes sisters with pre-diabetes and then moving into type 2 diabetes, and it's just kind of, it's one step on the ladder, so to speak. So it's not something we want, it's not a state that we want to be in, but most of us who do have some excess weight and we have had it for a long while, most of us have insulin resistance. Now there are ways to measure this. You can take your blood sugar, glucose sugars and things, and do some tests on that and measure it, and can be a little more definitive if you have it. I don't think it's necessary to do that necessarily, because most likely you do. And what it basically is when we eat, and especially our sugars and carbs, although it still can be there in protein and fats, but our pancreas will release insulin. So on a normal course of things, we eat our foods, the insulin's released, and the insulin's job is really to pick up sugars from our bloodstreams that shouldn't be there. What happens is that when we eat very high inflammatory foods and a lot of excess sugar. Now, some people say, I don't eat that much sugar, but I eat tons of bread. Well, bread, pastas, certain carbohydrates turn into sugar. So if you're eating a lot of breads, that is basically turning into sugars, and it's spiking the same insulin response. So what happens when our diets are full of these sugars and carbs, our insulin it has to surge to respond to those foods that we're eating. And when it does that, it causes this scenario that there's going to be this huge surge, and then there's going to be a drop, and a huge surge and a drop. When our bodies are doing this constantly, and day after day, year after year, to protect itself, I guess is the best way to say it, the receptors, the response, the body is trying to regulate itself in a sense to not have so many spikes and dips. So it starts to have the receptors not pay so much attention. It's trying to balance itself, is what it's trying to do. And so that is kind of called insulin resistance. But then the body, you're really confusing the body. And so the body's still producing a lot of insulin, but now it's not being used the same way to take care of those sugars in the bloodstream. So now we start to have higher and higher blood sugar levels, which is not a good thing for your long-term health. It turns into a problem, turns into diabetes. And that's why pre-diabetics and type 2 diabetes, I mean, it's really an epidemic at this point in our country. So what can we do? Can that repair itself? Yes. Thank the universe and God for creating the fabulous bodies that we have, because our bodies will readjust. It will go back to its normal, perfect way of handling this if we really lower down the sugars and the carbohydrates that are producing this effect, and eating clean food. So trying to really eliminate, if you know that this is a problem, that's why a lot of people will say, we really want to try to, and that's why some people also fast, because during the times you're not eating, there are no insulin spikes. And as I mentioned, I believe you really shouldn't be grazing all day long, because again, the fewer times in a day that you're actually having that insulin to have to respond, that will eventually start to re-regulate how your how those receptors are getting back to a normal level. So just really cutting back on your sugar, keeping your sugars to more natural fruit type of a sugar where you're going to have a lot of fiber, eating the whole fruits, not fruit juices. Fruit juices, anything liquid like that, is going to enter more quickly into your bloodstream, which is going to need a heavier response. So definitely whole fruits. Be aware if you know that you're have that resistance there, you might want to limit your fruits to lower sugar type fruits like your berries and things like that, at least for a while. Down the road, when your body is healthy again, then of course you can have a larger variety of things at that point. So that's pretty much what insulin resistance is all about. So if you cut back on what I call the sticky carbs, at least for a while, until you get your regulation back. And one of the ways people say, well, how do I know I have this? A big thing is cravings. How often are you craving, or are you feeling hungry? If you have you have lunch and you've had a nice, a salad and maybe some nuts and berries in there, a little, berries for dessert or things like that. And then 2 hours later, you're starving, most likely. I'm talking about you ate a substantial, a lunch. You weren't trying to cut back and just have 2 pieces of lettuce, but you ate a very nice lunch, maybe with some shrimp or chicken on top, and it was satisfying, delicious, and a fully nourishing meal. And then you start to crave 2 hours, you're hungry again. That hunger and those cravings are most likely that you're insulin resistant. So the good news is the more that you clean up your diet, we use some of the tricks we talked about last night to kind of help regulate that blood sugar, like the apple cider vinegar trick and things like that, then your cravings will diminish. And this isn't going to be a long process for this to diminish. You'll notice changes within, I would say, a week or 2 at the most. When you really clean up your diet, you will feel it. You'll feel so much better. You'll start to realize that you can go longer and longer times in between meals, and you're very satisfied. You have energy, vitality. You're not hungry and just craving for anything. So that's going to be a huge help, and you're going to turn that corner, and it can be turned pretty quickly. Now, if you've had years and, as far as really totally getting rid of insulin resistance, that may take a little bit longer. I mean, that's not going to happen in 2 weeks. I just feel that you're going to notice a decrease in your cravings, in your highs and lows within a couple of weeks. And then we want to continue on this protocol until your body is really in a much healthier state. So hope that makes sense. And I think that was all the questions we had for today. It's just about 30 minutes. So again, thank you so much for participating in this mini course. If there are questions that I didn't answer, or you've just been a little shy to ask, post them below. Email me if you prefer to do it through email, info@feelfabulousnutrition.com. And then Monday night at 8 o'clock will be our last wrap-up night. I will be going through much more information on if you're, if you feel like you're ready to move forward, you know that this is what you want to do, you want some help in making sure that you can change some of the habits and a situation that you're in right now, then I would love to have you, of course, in the program, and I'll give you much more details on Monday night about that. And then just kind of wrap up some of the highlights of this week, some of the takeaways, action steps that I would say you can take, maybe the first 3 action steps so that you could commit to while we're ending this mini course. And I'm so looking forward to that on Monday night, 8 o'clock Monday night here, right in the same place, same time. And you have a fabulous weekend, fabulous Saturday. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.